Hi, everybody. I'm Allison Salinas, and welcome to Citizen Watch, where your voice matters. This is going to be an awesome episode. This is episode 5. I've got Catherine O'Shea, she's going to be a candidate for the 3rd District U.S. House of Representatives, and Ashley Ramos with Back the Blue Events. Hi, ladies. How are you doing?
Hi.
Very good. Thanks for inviting me.
Awesome. Well, since we have 2 guests for my first time, usually I just have 1 guest, so this is pretty cool. I like the more the merrier. So we're going to start with Catherine and move on to Ashley. So Catherine, thank you again for coming on my show. I appreciate it. So I know we've talked previously before, and I know you ran before and didn't win, unfortunately, but you're going to run again. So can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I ran. Dan Lipinski is our congressman now in the 3rd District, and his term is up, of course, in January. The reason I jumped in is 2 reasons. He's been in office long enough, and he's a Democrat. I'm a former Democrat, switched to Republican in 2016 and voted for Trump. And Lipinski also voted for the impeachment for Trump. So I went to our Cook County Republican committee, the president, Sean Morrison, and I said to him, "Do you have anybody running?" I said, on the Republican side, and he says, "We got Mike." And Mike was there, Mike for Sloan. And I said, he's not going to beat Marie Newman, because I knew Marie Newman was going to beat Lipinski on the Democrat side. I said, he will not beat her. I said, I check all the boxes and this and that. So he said, no, we got Mike. We're good. We'll find you something else. And I said, no. I'm going for Congress. So I said, your job is to fill the seat with a Republican that's going to win. And I said, and Mike is not going to beat her, which he did not. And Marie Newman has the seat. So that's why I'm going to be running again. But, it's the boys club, and that's what drives me nuts. The boys club, they have all their friends. One's a Cook County commissioner. The other one's a Will County commissioner. They're all buddies. And we push the women aside, and then our Sean Morrison doesn't even fill the ballots with Republican candidates. I mean, we had a couple of seats. Water reclamation, there was no Republicans. We had District 36 for a state rep, empty. So, and I even said to him, are you sure you're a Republican? You're not working hard to fill the ballot here. Right. So, so I'm going to run again. And actually, being a former Democrat helped me, too, because Lipinski was a Democrat, and he kind of was in the middle, but yet he voted for the impeachment. So I said, all of his voters, though, I could garner because I have a connection to them. They're waiting. And I know the district because I work the district. I'm in the real estate for 30 years. I've worked the entire district. So I said, you need somebody to bridge that. I'm the bridge. I said, that's why I was very pushing, you can even say, and determined to run. And but what happened right before the primary, they put out a big thing in the newspaper, a big ad in the newspaper, write up that the Democrats that would walk away and go on to the Republican side, you must pull a Democrat ballot one last time because we need to get rid of Kim Foxx, who is the state's attorney who lets everybody, it's revolving door with the criminal activity. So they did. And the day after the primary, even the day of the primary, people have emailed me, called me, texted me. Don't worry, I had to pull the ballot this time for Kim Foxx, but I'm going to get you in November. Don't worry about it. It doesn't work that way, as we all know. If you're not on the ballot in November, they can't vote for you in November. So all the would-be voters they would have had, although I did 33% anyway. I did get 33% of the votes, and I do have to say, with $1,000 and 33% of the votes, I did pretty well, and I did most of it, 99% of it myself. So imagine if I had, more of a group. yeah, I would definitely get it. But so I lost the primary. But I did, and a lot of people that lose an election, a primary, you don't hear from them again. They go back to do whatever they were doing, and that's that. I have not stopped fighting for our freedoms. I have not stopped. And I even organized a rally, and Ashley knows too. She's done 1,000 rallies, and I see her at rallies and stuff too. And this is what's important. I mean, and that just shows too, I was in it for the right reason. I was in it to, protect our freedoms, in our, with Donald Trump, President Trump, everything he's done. The Democrats, they won't even congratulate him on one thing that he's done. I swear, I think none of them have ever played a game of sport game at all. When the opposing team does something really good, you cheer, you give them a high five. Hey, that was good, whatever. No, they can't even from keeping us out of war. They can't even say anything positive about it. So, no, I'm running again because our freedoms are important, and I see them being chipped away on the national level, and even in the state of Illinois here, but on the national level too. They're taking our freedoms away. Censoring, we know that, the censoring freedom of speech, the guns, the FOIA cards, the red flag laws. So that's exactly why I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to stop. I just need to build my base, and educate a lot of the people along the way too, because a lot of people don't know. Like I said, they're like, "Oh, I'll get you in November." It's like, no, I'm not on there on November now because you pulled the Democrat ballot, So that's what happened there. But I'm not giving up. So I'm still out there fighting.
Well, that's awesome. And I'm all about, in it for the long run. So we agree on that part. I think that's what it's going to take is, a bunch of people like us, that don't give up and want those freedoms. And the Constitution is important. Backing our officers is highly important. Ashley, I know, agrees with that. But and everybody that, has a little bit of common sense, I think that's fair to say, agrees with that point. And just the democratic bureaucracy with it all, it's getting worse day by day. It's getting worse. And, now Pritzker's trying to pull the liquor license and the beer license. And so it's just one thing toppling after another. And it's not just Pritzker. It's a lot of people. It's in, it scares me to think Biden might get in. That terrifies me. So real quick, we're going to kind of, since we have both guests here, we're going to jump kind of back and forth. So Ashley, she does Back the Blue events. She is highly famous in social media. A lot of people love Ashley. She gives her heart and soul, her passion to what's important. So Ashley, you have a big event coming up. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, I am. First and foremost, though, I want to bring up something that Kathy said because it's so important. I'm very glad that you're continuing your run. It's so good to hear, that you're not giving up, because we can't have that anymore. You know what I mean? We can't fall asleep on this, because that's what's gotten us where we are right now, is people falling asleep on their duties. As Americans and as patriots, we are obligated to secure the blessings that we were given by our forefathers. So it's super important. So thank you, Kathy, for continuing that. And also to Allison for giving a platform so that people can know that there are those strong-minded people out there. That's super important. And that actually comes to the event that we're doing. I do Back the Blue events, so I support police and first responders first and foremost. But right now there's something larger at stake that involves them that we're working on. So we have an event that started out as just a stop the steal, working with voters, protesting the shutdowns, and it's on Thanksgiving. And the reason that we chose on Thanksgiving, because I've had a lot of people say, why didn't you do it the day after? Why didn't you do this? Because would you rather be sitting at home complaining about the fact that somebody else is stealing your liberties, or would you rather be out doing something about it? At this point, there is no good that's going to come to anybody who's going to sit at home on Thanksgiving and say, man, I couldn't even buy a turkey big enough to feed my family if I wanted to, because they're closing down all these grocery stores. And there's only so much at Walmart. There's only so much at your, local wherever. So we have to stop this for those local stores, for those local businesses. We need to stand up for them as well. We have to be their support system. And one of the things that I thought was interesting, I talked to a business person who said, if they try to pull my liquor license, I will open my doors and it will be a $5 donation appreciated for this item, $3 donation appreciated for this item. So you have the opportunity to still go and you still can do that. And for any businesses out there that are listening, you can do that. You can always take a donation if you are willing to give something for free. I have a nonprofit, so I understand that mentality. There's a lot of things that we give out and we just appreciate the donations of the kind-hearted people. And we can do that for businesses. We can be those kind hearts that say, you know what, if they pull your license, that's all right. I want to donate to you because I believe in your business. So please, everybody out there, remember that and do the best you can to help your local bars, your local restaurants, your local grocery stores who really need that money. We can do that for them. So back to this event. So this event, we are marching from the Trump Tower to the J. Pritzker Pavilion, MAGA stomping all over the city. We have Ali Alexander, who did the Mega Million March in DC. He's going to be coming to march with us. We actually have some pretty big name people that are coming from all over the United States now. We have people coming from Georgia, LA, Washington, DC, all our neighboring states, people coming from all over to Chicago, so that we can, because our representatives, the Lightfoots and the Pritzkers, while they're affecting our lives negatively, there's a Lightfoot and a Pritzker all over the United States. And we have to send a message to them that we will not live like this. We are slaves to no government. We are slaves to no doctrine that they can create. We were given the one document that gives us the freedom not to live like that. And all of us should be refusing to bow down to such tyranny. And the thing is, this is something that I've said to many people, and I hope that everybody hears me say this on here right now. Right now, the reason that the left has done so much and gone so far is because in the United States of America, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. If you are the squeakiest wheel, you're going to get the grease, and people are going to listen to you because they're going to want to appease you, because unfortunately, that's just how our media and our government has learned to be. If we do not, as conservatives, as Republicans, as people who believe in our civil liberties, if we do not become that squeakiest wheel, we will turn into the nail that gets hammered. Those are our options. That is the option that our government is giving us right now. Either we start taking control of our lives and taking responsibility for our country and making sure that it runs appropriately, or we will turn into that socio-communist country where if you're too loud and they don't like what you're saying, they'll simply silence you. And it's happening all over the place. To those of you who don't know what's going on in Europe right now, there's major riots happening all over Europe, all over the whole southern Asian seaboard. India has, it's all over. So it's not just here, but we have an opportunity to set an example as Americans that patriotism is alive and well in our hearts and that we're willing to stand up for it. End rant.
Awesome.
I agree.
I'll say aye. So yeah, and it is important, and I hate that I can't come. I wanted to come and I had planned on it, and it just wasn't in the cards, and I am sick over it, but it's a little bit of toss up. It is my grandson's first set of holidays.
Oh, yeah, she has a baby grandbaby. Oh, because I'll
Yes.
forget if I don't say it right now. So we are going to be at the Trump Tower. We're getting there at 11. We're marching at noon, and we'll have everything over by about 2 o'clock so people can still get home to spend time with their family. And we're trying to make sure we have plenty of hot cocoa and cupcakes for people when we're all done, just to kind of celebrate a good march. This is supposed to be something for everybody, and we want to celebrate having a good, safe march. So I wanted to say that before I forget.
Well, that's great. Yeah. So, wow, that sounds really big. It grew since the last time we talked. So that's awesome, though. I can't wait to see it live. I know you're going to stream it. So that's always important. So if you can't be there, at least catch Ashley's live and do a watch party. I encourage that with my Citizen Watch as well. And that's part of how we get the word out with everything that we do. And, that's important. And the stretch of the reach is really important, especially with all the censorship and whatnot that Facebook has tried to do. I learned the hard way on my Senate page that apparently the only people that like my page can now see it. So unless someone stretches it out, it's the same thing with Back the Blue rallies. If we don't keep doing watch parties and keep pushing it as far as we can, our viewers are going to be slim to none or limited, not slim to none, but limited when they shouldn't be.
Yes.
So, okay.
I want to say something, and I would really love to have Kathy comment on this because she's seen it. Because she's been out to kind of different rallies than Allison, than you and I have been to. We have seen the opposing left out there, trying to tell us that we're wrong. And this is something that, I would really love for Patty to give her perspective on. I just said Patty. I just called you Patty. I'm sorry. I had Patty in my mind. Because I was just talking to Patty right before this.
Do you know the opposing protesters, we certainly outnumber them. There's usually just a handful, and they'll stand there with a little sign. They don't do anything. Some of them brought their flags. Some had Mexican flags, and actually, I did call one of them over. I said, "Come over to our side." And I was talking to the one, and I said, your family came. I said, we respect everybody's country flags. I said, but we have to respect the American flag above all. I said, in this country. And I said, your family ancestors, I said, came, and this was a teenager with the Mexican flag. And I said, your ancestors, I said, they came here, I said, for a better world. And I said, and they were upset about the wall. This is the thing, the wall. And I said, but we're protecting you. The wall is protecting you from anybody to come in and to keep you safe. And so I did, so then they were fine after that. They were fine after that, after we explained it. It's not that nobody can go back, can go visit. I've been in Mexico myself. And it's not that they can't go back there either. I had to explain it's come here legally. And I have ancestors from Ireland. They came here legally. My ex-husband's from Ireland. Came here, had to get, and he didn't have to become a citizen, but he wanted to be a citizen. And so that's all that it's just come here legally in that. But this is the land of opportunity. This is it. And they're, especially in Illinois, I mean, they're taking the opportunities away. What they want, what Pritzker wants to do, Pritzker in group, bankrupt everybody. They're taking the businesses, by bankrupting the businesses, all the workers, they don't have a job. Homeowners are going to go in foreclosure. Now, I'm in real estate. I already see an uptick in that. We have storefronts that are vacant, can't get them leased out. Businesses that are for sale, who's going to buy them? And not only that, even the vendors for these businesses, they lose their jobs. The truckers for the vendors, they lose their job. I mean, it's a ripple effect, and everybody's bankrupt. And then we're all beholden to the government, and that's exactly what they want. So this isn't. And then the loans that they were giving out for business owners, they were giving the loans out, but they have to be paid back within a certain amount of time. Well, I was telling people, don't take the loan if you don't have to, because you're not guaranteed your business is to be here in 6 months when that loan is due. So you have to look at the whole big picture. And people are afraid right now what's going to happen if, I think Trump won, but let the system play out. That's why we have a system. Let it play out. Let them do what they do with their legal team and that, and with Congress, and see what happens, and we'll go from there. But there's still so many patriots that, even if Biden did get in, there's so many of us that are not going to go along with what he wants to do. We have to continue to fight for him.
I thought it was funny. I was just at an event yesterday where a girl was holding a sign. This is a lefty girl. Her sign literally said, if we didn't count all with an underline underneath it, the votes, Trump would have won. So you're literally saying if we didn't count all of the fraudulent votes, even you are admitting that Trump would have won. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Come on now. I think the Skittles that you dyed your hair with got into your brain cells and killed a few, because who does that? You know what I mean? Like that's terrible that people are willing to admit, well, it's okay because he cheated, because the guy that we wanted to won. But what happens the next time they cheat and the guy that you don't like wins? And it's not good for us. You know what I'm saying? Like, Venezuela didn't teach these people nothing. I'm telling you, like, people just, they think it can't happen to me. It's that sheeple mentality of let's just keep staying the course, even if we're falling off the cliff, everybody.
Yes, that's what they're doing. And what's funny is in February, I put out there, because on my sign I have O'Shea for Congress, I said, our future depends on it. I mean, I was really pushing our future depends on it. But you have to vote Republican and vote for me. But anyway, I remember putting out there also, if you don't vote Republican, this may be your last vote. I mean, I saw it coming. And here we are.
Well, and that's scary for, both of us, Kathy. We're both running in 2022. Mm-hmm. And that is that is also going to be such an important election, because that's Pritzker's election. That's the U.S. Senate election. That's so many important seats. And I was just discussing with a friend of mine earlier, we got to make it to 2022. We got to survive until then. And if we don't stand up and band together now, we're not going to make it to that. It's not going to be there to have. And people don't understand that this is our freedoms. This is our Second Amendment right. It's everything. Like Ashley said, our forefathers, they didn't do this because they had nothing else to do. They did it for a reason. And they came up with these laws of land that work. It's a system that works. And people, all they want to do, when I talk to citizens and I talk to constituents about the vital understanding of this, they say the same thing. We just want to go back to work. We just want to support our families. We want to feed our families, and we want to go back to helping our neighbors. And, and now it's who can you trust? Who can you not trust? It's just, it's hard, and it makes it virtually impossible to hold what we believe is so true. And that's where us fighters come out. That's where people that, I'm a regular citizen. I'm a mother of 4 and a grandmother, and I've been married 10 years. I'm not even originally from Illinois, and I see the corruption, and I guess maybe it helps because I'm not from Illinois originally. I've been here 7 years, so I get a little credit. But,
we
I've been
welcome
here.
You.
Do what?
We welcome you.
Thank you. But coming from the outside, you see an outside view. You're not corrupt already. You're not. I don't have any politics in my background. I joke about this all the time. My biggest background in politics, other than what I've studied and learned so far, which I've done a lot, is American government and international relations. And I grabbed my professor from Illinois Central College, and he's my advisor for my campaign. That's how much I trust him. And it's funny because he's a libertarian. And on my show, I grab everybody. I don't care if I don't care about the party. I care about the person. I care about what they represent and what they stand for and where their heart is. And I want every voice heard. And I think that's exactly what's not happening. Is every time I talk to someone, it's my voice doesn't matter, or my vote doesn't count, or I'm not being heard. I scream and scream and scream at the top of my lungs, and it's like nothing's happening.
Well, part of that is because in Illinois, it's not that necessarily everyone is corrupt. It's the exception. It's the accepting that the corruption exists and not being willing to correct it. And that's where I feel like we as citizens need to take responsibility for that and say, my bad. And myself included. I've never been a poll watcher. I've never been a poll judge. I should be. It should be people who are like us, that have a voice, that are not scared to use our voices. We need to be promoting more people to come out and be like that and say, I'm here to do a job. I'm going to do the job and I'm going to make sure that it's done correctly. That doesn't mean that we're going to manipulate the system. That means we're going to make sure that the system is used the way it's intended to. We didn't have that in this election. We haven't had that in many elections, especially in Illinois. But again, that comes down to the people. And I would even take it a step further, that not only should we be advocating for each other to be those poll watchers and those vote judges and, you know, all of that, but we should be taking more responsibility in how we're designating our future voters into doing these things. You know, we should have children. Again, we fell asleep, and even myself, my kids, I need to get them off their cell phones more. How many children do you know that are 17, 18 years old, 16? They want to drive a car, but they don't know how to change the tire. They don't know how to change the oil. They don't know how to do things with their hands. And therefore, because they've never been given that opportunity, they don't understand how to appreciate a skill. They don't understand how to appreciate where things come from, and they don't understand how to respect the people that create these items. So when you take away someone's objectivity of success from a skill or respect for how something is created, you got essentially a useless individual. Let's just be honest here. And our generations are at the cusp of where we started seeing that degenerate behavior, where it's so easy to get on the phone and have somebody else do it. It's so easy to just throw something away and buy a new one rather than fix it. We've lost the idea that if we put our hands in it, if we become involved, we can fix things, or we can essentially make them better. And we have to change that mentality if we're going to see any long-term lasting positive change. And that means also that we have to be able to see both sides of the coin. And Kathy's absolutely right. Being a Democrat at one point and seeing the opposite perspective of what most people consider a Republican and conservative, and being able to mold those two idealisms together to create the kind of union that we need, is more of what we need coming into play. Somebody's always going to lose a little bit. Somebody's always going to gain. But that's how our country was created, was to make that fair and equal share of gains and disappointments. Let's just be honest about it. I'm pro-life, but I understand that there's going to be legislation that's going to assist in situations where my pro-life views do not always necessarily create the best answer for that. But that's the kind of thing that we need to be doing. Taking things like the pro-life, the pro-choice, thing, and saying, okay, well, life is precious. We all know this. Babies are precious, right? I don't know a person in the world who wouldn't say that a baby isn't precious, but there might be a situation where, unfortunately, that precious life is not meant, to be in this world for whatever reason. So we pass legislation to safeguard and protect someone's right to do that if necessary. That's to me, that's just logical. That's common sense. But common sense ain't so common anymore. So we need to find the people like the Cathys of the world who are willing to be that middle ground so we can find those things. Or Allison, you have friends that are Democrats as well. So you're doing the same thing. You're finding those positive solutions. But we need to take the idea of personal responsibility, personal or accountability to our politicians, and the willingness to continue those progressions so that it goes beyond just us. We need to be moving this forward into the future as well. Again, and Grant, I apologize.
Yeah, it's definitely going to take someone, really, we have to have people that are able to talk to both sides of the aisle. Because, in just a little background, since I was 16, I didn't vote till I was 18. I don't think I've ever missed an election voting. But since I was 16, I was campaigning for somebody. My father had us out there either putting signs in the yard for people or putting things on the doors, some flyers, or as we got older, getting signatures. The day of the election, I was always doing palm cards for somebody. I also was 6 years in with the Worth Township Trustee of Schools. It was an elected position, non-paying position, but I wanted to do my civic duty. And so I did that for 6 years. We invested $300 million is what are the monies that we pulled together from all the schools. It's an office that's under the radar. But again, I'm on record even saying that office does not need to exist. We don't need townships. The only way taxes are going to get down is if we eliminate the redundancy in the offices. We have 7,000 units of government in Illinois. We don't need townships other than in the rural areas. Just think for the real estate alone that it sits on, the payroll and to staff it, supplies, all that. It's the money would be it's in the millions that they would save, that the state would save. So that's the only way taxes are going to go down. They need to just get rid of those jobs and let the free market work. And we don't need emission testing sites, because when you go to an emission testing site, if your car doesn't pass, they give you a little pamphlet of local mechanics that'll go fix it. Well, let those local mechanics do the emission test. And we can just have oversight from the state. We don't have to have the actual facility. So it's just, there's things that have to be worked out with that, but I'm just saying there's just so much I can think of just off the top of my head that just needs to go.
Or accountability with the spending, Kathy, because I'm telling you, one of the things that I always ask people, where's all the toll money going? Our roads are never fixed. None of these things are ever done, but they make millions and millions of dollars on tolls every year, but they can't tell us where it's going. All they're saying is that there's still never enough money. To me, I'm a big believer in two things. Number one, there should be a budget given out. I don't know if they should mail it out or we should do emails or what, but there should be a user-friendly, for the common layman like me, breakdown of the budget that we should be able to see for every fiscal year. And it should also be said that every bill that gets passed, whether it's in our state or our federal government, should never be more than 100 pages long, so that it can be read and that we can't kill the cats inside to save the puppies bills. I'm a huge supporter of those two things.
Well, a lot of them, they'll put a couple of things in one bill and they'll name it something really good, like the fair tax law. But
that was great.
No, it's not. But they do that with a lot of bills. And the name does not meet with doesn't match with what's actually in the bill. So that's wrong. It's deceiving, deception in that. So no, yeah, and they need to make it. Well, they have to have it in their legal jargon, of course, but a little summary of what it is would be good for everybody to understand what it is all about. But our roads, our highways are pretty good. It's the bridges. Our infrastructure is super important. I mean, because if we don't have good bridges and infrastructure, even with the railroads and that too, our goods, they got to go from A to B. We have to have, I mean, it's imperative we have good roads and bridges. But they do work on the highways and that, but it's the bridges and then the local streets, though, they need to fix those, especially in Chicago. Oh my God.
Oh, yeah. The local streets are horrible. Right. Especially in Peoria. Oh my gosh. my daughter makes a crack. Of course, my entire family knows I'm running in 2022 for U.S. Senate. But my daughter makes a crack. She said, Mom, you're going to get an email every time I see a pothole. And I said, okay. So I can imagine, because in my position, when I beat Tammy Duckworth, that's my baby. That's between the vets and the infrastructure and the wholeheartedly atmosphere of the funding that comes into Illinois. It's imperative that's right. And with the bills that they passed, like you mentioned, the fair tax law, oh my gosh,
anything but fair. Yeah.
And if they spent, here's what I think, if they spent half as much time as they did trying to be corrupt about things and actually fix things, we'd get somewhere. The language of it, and Ashley has a good point of, it needs to be in layman terms. It needs to be where the citizens, they're the ones voting for us. They should be able to understand what they're voting for. And it's so hard when you don't understand what you're voting for, and or you can't agree or disagree because the terminology is not right. And then you expect them to understand what your purpose is supposed to be. And you can't, I don't know, take an English class. I mean, learn
Well, I
terminology.
think it's beyond English at this point. I think it's the way, it's the manipulation of the language that's the hardest part. You know, the way things. I mean, it's as simple as like the shell game. You know what I mean? If you're standing in front of someone and they're moving the shells and they're saying pretty words and you're engaged in what they're saying, but you're not looking at the shells, you're gonna miss the P. So
Right.
that's really a lot of what I have seen, and the fair tax is an excellent example of that, of using language that makes it sound like something so much better than what it could have ever been. And thank God that it got people wised up and they didn't agree with it. But another thing that I just heard that they passed a budget, and I believe it was New York, and there was a $35,000 raise for one of their. We're in the middle of a pandemic where there's thousands of businesses shutting down. Your state is basically swimming down the toilet. I mean, somebody already hit the flush, and you're giving yourself a $35,000 raise. Who does that? Why? If there's any reason to be rioting in the street, that should be it.
Right.
You should be angry that you're losing money and people are literally dying because of what they're doing. There's more people who have died because of bad choices in COVID legislation or COVID lockdowns than there have been people that have died from COVID, and people just don't want to hear that. Why? Because the media doesn't want you to hear that, because it doesn't fit the agenda. There's so much waking up needs to be done.
Our state legislators gave themselves a raise in May. Yeah, they did. Jay Carr, who's just like a 10 board member, two of them live near me. One is a state senator, Bill Cunningham, and then Fran Hurley, she's the state rep. And yeah, that's the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules. And that's where Pritzker, he had his executive order for 30 days, and then he extended it in the beginning. Well, the first 30 days was fine, but he cannot extend it without legislative approval. So they didn't meet to approve. When they finally did meet anyway, they weren't going to have enough votes to extend it. So they just dismissed the session. They didn't even vote on it, yes or no. So they just dismissed it. And then when they went back a second time, then they voted themselves a raise too. It's just, let me ask you this. What do you think about now at the nursing homes? The nurses are they're on strike at the nursing homes.
I just saw that the other day. That's horrible. I don't even know what to think about that. I think I know it's going to cause more damage than good, but we already have a problem. You know, two of my daughters, I have 3 daughters, and 2 of my daughters both work in a nursing home, and they work in the kitchen area, and they have like C hall as COVID patients or whatever. And, you know, if you have the nurses and whatnot in the nursing homes going on strike, then that's less care for the elderly, obviously. So it's like a snowball effect to me. And I think it just does more damage than good.
Well, nursing homes are always understaffed anyway.
Right.
Absolutely. They're understaffed, and it's a sin for the money that they take in. It's a sin. They're saying that they're not getting the proper PPE for the
yeah. and that's a big deal.
And the pay as well.
Right. I subcontracted through Caterpillar, and that's why I had to leave, was because the PPE equipment wasn't up to par, you know, and we walked in like spacemen trying to, like, I don't know if either one of you have ever actually seen when workers go into a COVID area and clean it. It's like something out of a movie. You're in this space gear with this helmet over your head and this mask inside of the helmet, and then where the gear comes up to your arms and you have gloves on, it's duct taped around it so you can't get anything in there. And it is so hot. Like, I almost passed out 3 times. But we have to go in there and you have to clean everything. And then I found out, that gear wasn't up to par. How many people were, it's the neglect of things. I think it's people not looking at everything that needs to be done to get through this, or, you know, no matter which side your view is on, whether it's on, oh, it's COVID, it's scary. I mean, yes, COVID's real. I actually know people now. I can say I know people that had it. I wasn't around them, but I know people that, you know, that have had it, and it's scary, and people are worried, and you have to deal with, like you said, Kathy, you know, both sides of the coin. You have to deal with, you have to know how to talk to everybody in the realm of people, whether it's people that are against masks or for masks, or Democrats or Republicans, and we have to find a way to get them together. And, you know, I joke about this all the time, but I'm very serious about it. I think the entire state of Illinois, and pretty much the whole world, needs to watch How the Grinch Stole Christmas at the end of the movie, when the Grinch takes the presents and they all go around the Christmas tree and hold hands, and they're just happy. Like, that needs to happen. You know, coming together and being more positive about it. I know it's a little cliche to say it like that, but we do have some comments coming up, guys. So I want to make sure these voices are getting heard. There's some pretty good comments. So Kimberly said our representatives should be louder and not just sitting back and being quiet. Let their people know what is going on in terms they can understand. We just went over that, you know, how important that is. And, you know, and as far as, you know, the infrastructure one, she said, you know, in the Quad Cities, they have a half of a new bridge. Like, where's the other half? When's that getting built? A half of a bridge? Who does that?
Our bridges across the country need to be all of them. I mean, a lot of, especially on I-80. We have one on I-80 here. It's terrible.
Oh, going into Joliet, I think is what you're talking about. There's a bridge that they're like saying it could really collapse at any moment.
Yeah.
Oh, before we get too far away from what you were just talking about with the nursing homes, this is one of those things where I want to tell people, I don't personally want nurses to strike for the thing that we were just talking about, because of it, essentially it can hurt the elderly. But if we don't want that, again, this is where we as people need to be more involved. If you have a relative who's working in a nursing home and you know they're underpaid, understaffed, and don't have PPE, go out there with the sign and stand for them while they're on shift and say, my Aunt Teresa is in here right now. They don't have the PPE. She gets paid minimum wage for doing something that a superhero would be doing. Call the owner, whoever owns, if it's a private, if it's a state, if it's a public, call in and say, hey, why aren't you doing this? Call a news station and say, hey, we're going to be standing out here with signs. They need to know this is happening. Talk to the people whose parents are there. You know, if someone's parents are there and you know they would normally be coming to see them and they don't get to see them, say, hey, look, this is the kind of treatment. This is how hard they're working. They need this extra help. Will you please call in and say, hey, you know, we want to make sure that the people taken care of, our parents are taken care of. Now, those are things that we could be doing to help those nurses that would really make an impact. That could make a difference for them while those elderly people are still getting the care that they need. So again, we, the people, need to start taking care of each other. If we're going to hold hands around that Christmas tree, we need to be holding each other up as well when we need it. You know, we need to make sure that those situations, that they're not just falling through the cracks. And a lot of people, if that's not just elderly people, do you know how many disabled homes we have here? I have one not too far from me that has disabled people of all ages. They're over the age of 18, but anything from 18 to 90. You know, there's people of all ages in that facility. There's young children in children's homes right now that they need, you know, assistance because they might have disabilities. There's things like that happening all over the state, and they're suffering because of these COVID lockdowns and not having things. So we need to be reaching out and paying attention to those things as people as well. That will make a difference for somebody doing those kinds of things. So I just wanted to point that out real quick.
Absolutely. Yeah, they were on the news, and they did have a group outside that were other workers, but to have other people besides the workers, you know, with them, that would make a huge difference, that they're supported. I'm for unions, which everyone says typically Republicans are for unions. No, I am. My father was a union leader. And one union worker takes a family off welfare. Well, that's less government. Isn't that Republican? So I'm all for the unions. I think everyone should have representation at work. On the private sector, they're doing fine. In the public sector, the teachers, the police, the firemen, those have to be renegotiated because the money's just not there. But there could be something else negotiated. within that contract. And one of them, I was telling John Cantandera, I says, why don't you get them where they don't have to live in the city? I said, they'd love that, the policemen, because that's in their contract. They have to live in the city if they're going to be a police officer in Chicago. So he's doing that. And I said, there's other things you can, it's not always the pay, you know, and my father always said that too. It's the benefits sometimes that are more valuable than the pay. So, you know, and I've been negotiating my whole life. For 30 years, I've worked with the public. There's a lot of realtors that are in state offices and in federal offices because it's a seamless transition. We can take any issue and negotiate it. That's what we do. We negotiate. We look at both sides and go from there.
Absolutely.
I think we need to put more responsibility also on how the money is being spent, because Indiana is a good example of how you can have a state that has plenty of different unions in it, and it's Republican run, and they have a surplus. And it's because of how the money is being managed. That to me is huge. And again, that just speaks to the idea that we've allowed the corruption for so long that we're almost to the point where you wouldn't even know how to turn back the clock because it's just gone so far. There's a
But
lot.
here's where the title is different there. That's a right to work state. And the same thing with fair tax is not a fair tax. Right to work sounds good, but it's not. Somebody could fire you with a drop of a hat for no reason. There's nothing you can do about it. Where a union, the representation thing, what was the issue? I mean, if it's a legitimate issue, fine, you're gone. But yeah, so that's another thing where the wording is opposite. Yeah,
That's a good point.
Well, we have a question from one of our viewers, ladies. So what do you guys think about Chicago becoming their own district or state? What's your views on it? Kathy, I'll start with you.
I think they've tried that twice, and they did the same thing with New York. New York City wanted to part ways with New York because they're bringing in majority of the money. Same thing with Chicago's bringing majority of the money. But yet again, they're spending majority of the money too. So that was on the ballot before years ago. It never went through. Same thing with New York, never went through. So
I think that it will never go through, not because I think the rest of the state will gladly secede from the idea of Chicago. I don't think that that's where the problem is. The problem is that Chicago does not want to release the rest of the state because there's a lot of money that, okay, there's 2 streets in Chicago that make up the majority of the money in the whole state. And that used to be, it won't be anymore, but it used to be the Magnificent Mile and Little Village. You're talking like 26th Street. They have the 2 highest grossing streets in the whole state, right? But those 2 streets can't even make a pinprick in how much the rest of Chicago actually costs and spends. And nobody wants to take any responsibility for where all that money is going. They just don't tell us where it's going. They just file it and they just tell you, oh, it's in this whole big fiscal budget that we don't expect any of you to be able to read. Well, that's because you're just pushing money where you want to and don't want anybody to know about it. I mean, let's just be honest. But there's a lot of transit taxes. There's so much other taxes that comes from the rest of the state that is helping kind of ease the burden of that. But at the end of the day, the state of Illinois is just hemorrhaging money. We're almost to the point of junk status, and there's really no way to save it with the way that we're spending right now. And no matter what, at some point, it's going to hurt. To try to fix Illinois, it's going to hurt no matter what. There is no cushy way of coming out of the fiscal deficit that we put ourselves in. And we're going to be that point in the United States, no matter what. I mean, I don't know how you ladies feel about it, but in my mind, when people ask me my opinion, I tell them no matter who wins the presidential election or how many people win on either side, Republican or Democrat, for all these smaller offices, the next year at the very least is going to be hell, because we will have so much financial damage done across the country. I don't know how we are going to come back from it. Other than borrowing money from China.
We will. We're Americans. We will. We absolutely will. We're Americans. And that's where innovation comes in. When people are at rock bottom, that's innovation. You see innovation. I mean, look what Trump did anyway, too, with the when we needed masks and stuff, and then the ventilation machine. he had companies stop with what they're doing and make using their machines to make ventilators and that. And then people made masks. 3M, I think, were the ones that jumped in and made some masks. You know, and they never did that before, but you know, they had the equipment, they had the space, so he asked them to do that, and they did. Other people, look at all the money people are making now selling masks. I mean, you know, there's innovation, there's opportunity.
Get us back in China's pocket, and we already owe China so much money. If they ever called in their deficit that we owe them right now, we would be in some big trouble. They don't over half the country right now, and that's my biggest concern when it comes to Biden. See, everybody thinks that as a conservative that we immediately just don't like lefty ideas, and that's what I call them, is the lefty ideas. We think they want to take the freedoms of being able to be pro-choice, or this idea that we don't want poor people to have more money or become educated, because we don't just want to say, hey, we'll pay for all of your school debt that you decided to rack up and now you can't pay for it. It really isn't just that. It's the idea that we have to have a federal government that's going to be fiscally responsible. And what Nancy Pelosi and the left is trying to do, or like this Green New Deal, that will sink the country. We don't have the money for it. We don't have the money for a lot of what Trump was already trying to get rid of. And it's been just a struggle to do it. That's where I have the hardest time trying to find my way to finding common ground with people who have a different opinion than me. It's these fiscal caricatures of saying, yes, we should forgive school loans, and yes, we should give people free healthcare, and we free. There is no such thing as a free lunch, people. Somebody's got to pay for it. So how are we going to take the deficit that we already have, and then this potential to have even more money out there? Innovation can only get you so far. So how are we where are we cutting from? You know, that's one of
the government offices. We need to get rid of the government offices. There's just way too much government. The government is the biggest consumer and the biggest employer.
Oh, I like that answer.
Yes.
And, you know, and I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I've even said this about my run. You know, career politicians got to go. Raises out of nowhere got to go. There's no reason for it. You had mentioned earlier that, well, the legislation just gave themselves a raise. You know, why? Number one, they're not doing anything for that raise.
Because they can. And
I
it's
know,
wrong.
but
it's wrong.
But that needs to stop. That right there is where that money is going to come from. If we take it from legislation, if we take it from the U.S. Senate, and we take it from, President Trump donates his pay every time he gets it. And he's been the only president that's done that I know of. And, that's where the money comes from. That's where, because citizens, like Ashley, it's a good question. Well, what are you going to cut? Where, what do we got to worry about next? And so if we take it from the legislation, if we stop letting legislation give themselves raises, like teachers can't give themselves raises, cops can't give themselves raises, union workers can't give it, we can't give ourselves raises, then why should they be able to? They're no better than us. They put their legs in their pants the same. I think I'm saying that right. They put their pants on the same way we do every morning. They're no different than us. They have a job to do. And instead of focusing on, I think, I'll give myself and here's a perfect example of it. I was reading, running for U.S. Senate, you kind of got to know what you're getting into a little bit. And I was reading, and do you know the United States, do either one of you know how much the U.S. Senator makes? Just out of curiosity, do either one of you know?
I thought it was like $140,000 or something like that.
$174,000 a year. And on top of that, there's an $80,000 allowance. I don't even know where that comes from, to decorate 2 offices. What?
Well, you get bonuses too if you're on a committee and all that.
And that too. Why get? I'm sitting there going, I get $80,000 to decorate an office. I want to go to Walmart. What do I need $80,000 for? And granted, and then I find out there's a catalog that they have to order from out of the White House for the U.S. Senate. They can't use anything else.
Dude, I'm like, you need a desk and a computer and a printer. Like what?
But that desk is going to cost $100,000 because it's out of a catalog that they make you order from. Like, why? It's so much unnecessary stuff. It's insane. I'm like, who needs an $80,000 allowance
Dude,
to
I'm
decorate?
like, y'all are never in there anyway, okay? And honestly,
Right.
right, you shouldn't be unless you're doing something that involves your work. Other than that, why aren't you out being the streets in your district? Why aren't you out
Right.
having the conversations that you need to be having with the people that you're representing? Like the idea, and this is another thing that someone pointed out to me, that originally a lot of these offices, especially the smaller ones, like what Kathy was talking about, are meant to be part-time. They're not even supposed to be full-time because you're not supposed to have as much control over your citizens as what they're garnering in these offices.
Right.
This is supposed to be something you do part-time. You're still supposed to be a working active citizen paying taxes. So to me, when I hear that the Pritzkers of the world are locking us down and then taking off to Florida, or the Lightfoots of the world are giving us these mandates and then they're taking off to Michigan or Wisconsin or wherever the hell she went, and you're using taxpayer money to do that. We're not stupid. We know where that money is coming from. You're using stipends from your office to do this and do that, and using your vacation. Are you kidding me? Like,
well,
how? When did we let this go? See, this is what I'm saying. We fell asleep. I am just as much to
yeah,
blame.
we did. We absolutely did. And then, if that's not bad enough, there's 13 tax breaks for United States Senator. Why? Why? And that was just off a Google search. So I can't even imagine what I haven't looked up yet. I mean, $80,000 to decorate 2 offices, 13 tax breaks. Why? So much of it is unnecessary. It's insane. So I'm like, okay,
you have to staff you have to staff those offices. Now here, my congressman right now, Lipinski, because he's still in office. He's got 4 offices, one in my area in Oak Lawn, and he's got 3 other ones. One in the city, one in Tinley, and I forget where the other one's at. But anyway, you don't have to have you don't have to have 4 offices. You can you can have 2, just because our district is pretty big, so you can have one kind of in the middle of this and in the middle of the other.
Right.
But they have to be staffed. You know what I mean? All of that. So it's very easy to spend other people's money.
Very.
And that's where the problem comes in at.
Right.
Because it's other people's money. I'm going to tell you something really short, quick story. When I was with the trustee of schools, the treasurer said we have to approve a budget, and or any expenses each time between each meeting, and ordered flowers for somebody that retired, and it was $60. I didn't think you guys would mind, and I said, well, actually, I said, look, if you wanted everybody to chip in $10, whatever, no problem. I said, but what you did, that's taxpayer money. I said, so it's already done. Let it go. Please don't do it again. Because I'm thinking it's taxpayer money. If you want to ask me, Kitty, do you want to chip in where I'm going to get her flowers? She's retiring, been here 20 years, whatever. Fine. But don't spend taxpayer money. It's very easy to spend other people's money. But I questioned it and told him, don't do it again. And he did it, innocently. It wasn't like a big thing, but that's where you got to nip it in the bud. And I did. And I did.
And that's part of what I was talking about is that's taxpayers' money. It's not like Washington saying, oh, okay, here's 80 grand. It's taxpayers' money. And
right.
Of course, I'm thinking, okay, am I allowed to maneuver this money around? Can I donate it somewhere? Can I do something? So, I'm looking for avenues that would actually help the state of Illinois. And because I don't need $80,000 to decorate an office. I'm sorry.
And I'm telling you, this is what kills me. And I'm not a politician. I work with a nonprofit, but I've been thrown into this world of politics becoming such a big part of what I'm doing, because the politics that you guys are garnering, it affects the officers and first responders that I'm trying to help on a level that I can't get away from it, even if I wanted to. It is so hard to get donations as a nonprofit to help people. You would be you have to beat the street constantly and work so hard to get help for these people, because everybody assumes that first responders, police and otherwise, that they get these amazing benefits and they get this and they get that. Do you know, I know lady, her name is Kim Kowalski. She is from St. Louis. She is what she calls herself, a forever widow. And as a widow, she can't get remarried or she loses the benefits. So she could be a 50, 60-year-old woman, find somebody else in her life that she wants to spend the rest of her life with. But all of the time and effort that she put into that 30, 40 years that she was with her first husband means nothing if she gets married. She loses all the benefits that he paid in for that are supposed to be hers just because she happens to be trying to heal in her life. The benefits that they get, even if they never remarry, are so low. She told me a story, and I actually read it in a newspaper. There was a widow who ate dog food to stay alive. She was an old lady, like she was older at this point.
But that's not a law, Ashley. See,
no,
that's
I
not
understand.
a law. But
Right.
yeah, that should be changed. Because
Yes.
that should be changed. If that money was paid into, I don't care if somebody gets married again or not. You know what I mean? Some people,
Still theirs.
it's theirs and they should get it. The same thing, yeah, if they remarry, whatever. I get that. And what else is
The point that I was getting to, how that applies to legislation, is that it is the legislators who are using and abusing these officers, and we're coming across that here in Chicago. There are 60 people who filed a lawsuit against our police officers, and the only reason those police officers were even out is because these people were looting and rioting. They were damaging people's property. They were hurting other people. These officers were damaged. One officer partially lost his eyesight from getting hit in the face with projectiles. But they were out there, and it was our government officials that were telling them, oh, stand down. So these guys had to stand down to the point where they were physically injured, and they will deal with the repercussions of that for the rest of their lives. And now they're getting sued, and the government is just standing by. And like the Lori Lightfoots that put them in the position, the Pritzkers that put them in this position, the Kim Fox that let all these criminals back out onto the streets, they're getting their paychecks. They don't care that these officers are being sued, but it's those officers' pensions that are now on the line. It could potentially be their widows that suffer for this. And that's why I'm saying it. I can't even step away from the politics of it, because these politicians are using these police officers and other first responders that become put in harm's way for lack of these officers. There's first responders that they have to have police with them, even when they go on something like if someone's ODing. Have you ever seen someone who's ODing? They have superhuman strength sometimes. They hurt these first responders if they don't have someone who's there to help them. There's so many situations, and I get so passionate about this because it kills me that the Pritzkers and the Lightfoots and the Kim Foxes, who get paid with our tax money, are using these first responders on all levels to do their dirty work. And then our first responders have to suffer for it. And that's part of what I'm marching for too. I'll have my blue line flag out there on Thursday. You
Absolutely.
So that's something
I saw what you're talking about, and I saw the videos of even the night it happened. It's terrible. But what would be good is if everybody who does support the police go on that court date and be outside the courtroom, be outside the building, and in support, and hopefully it'll turn in their favor, because it is. They were put in positions that it's insane what's happening. Mm-hmm. They're trying to sue them.
It definitely is.
I can't wait for Pritzker and Lightfoot and all these dirty politicians, and it kills me that Kim Fox got back in. She should be in a courtroom on the other side of that bench, if you ask me. She manipulated the system. People have been hurt, murdered, not just cops, but regular everyday citizens. She let people out on these no cash bonds. Then they go out and they hurt other people or they murder them. There were multiple women this year who were murdered by people who were literally caught at these riots, got let right back out into the system, and then went out and killed women. I think there was 3 of them that I can think of at the top of my head. But nobody's talking about this. Nobody's holding Kim Fox accountable. These are the kinds of things that end up pulling me back to the political sphere, because it's people like that that are affecting the first responders that I'm trying to help. And they don't care. They don't care. She's not going to stop what she's doing because it fits her agenda. Pritzker and Lightfoot aren't going to stop what they're doing. They need to be taken out of office. They've got to go. Simple as that. They gotta. We got to do something, guys.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully we'll make it to 2022 and get some of these people out of office. I know Christopher Roper is running for governor. He is running strong and he is fighting. And he turned into Superman the other day. That was great. You know, he's a great guy. He's a real good friend of mine. He's passionate. He's got a family that backs him. He believes in the American way, and he believes in the Constitution and our freedoms, and he's willing to fight for them. He's an ex-cop and an ex-Army guy too. So he wants that seat, and he wants it bad, so bad he can taste it, and he's ready to change his state. You've got people like me and Kathy, and, you know, I don't really say this publicly, but I'm going to now. I've been pushing for Thomas DeVore. That man needs to run for attorney general. He can make some differences. You know, people like him, people like, you know, and imagine if we get Roper and we get DeVore and we get me and we get Kathy, you know, we can rope it in, you know.
Kathy, I know Allison is running in 2022. Are you running in 2022 or 24?
22.
You're running in 22.
Same.
Okay.
Yeah.
We need like a super rally.
Yeah, Marie Newman won, the Democrat. She won against my opponent who beat me in the primary with the help of the Democrat Party, asking them to pull a ballot one last time, Democrat ballot. But to get rid of Kim Fox. But yeah, Kim Fox got in anyway. So yeah, I'm gonna run again in 2022. And here in I was even going to, but it's a 4-year term, so I can't. Our mayor of my town, even. I thought in the meantime, let me do something else. I mean, I still work. I'm a realtor. But our mayor's seat is up, and so is our trustee seat. But they're 4-year terms. So I don't want to jump in and then have to, you know, get out. So, which is sad, though. I think there's nobody running against the one person that is running. So we need choices. And people are just, one person runs, they're like, okay, that's good enough. And then nobody jumps in. And it's like, no, you have to.
And you know, that's kind of what happened with me is I was sitting on my couch watching JB Pritzker. And by the third shutdown, I had enough. And I'm sitting on my couch. My husband's next to me. And I'm like, I can't just sit here and do nothing. Like, right. I'm sitting here griping about the problem. What am I going to do to fix it? And out of nowhere, I'm like, I'm going to run for office. And at that time, I had no clue what I was running for. I just knew I was running. And, you know, being a 3-time cancer survivor that has fought through a million different diversity challenges and still come up top, I'm a hard-headed gal. I tell you what, when I put my 2 feet in, I jump and I plant them pretty hard. So it takes me a little bit to knock me down. But I'm like you know, I have a real good friend of mine that I joined a company with her, and I found a saying for me. I'm like the whack-a-mole game. Like they hit him and I just keep coming up and just hit him and just keep coming up. And I'm like, you know, one of these days they're going to stop hitting and I'm going to stand pretty tall, you know? So it takes people like us. And Ashley, you need to run somewhere, girl. I know you said no, but either go be a teacher or run, because your voice and your heart, man, that's what it takes. Is the passion. Well, we need to wrap this up, ladies, but I'm going to give each one of you time because we kind of went over, but that's cool. I'm good with that. You know, I'm going to each give you one question to ask me if you want about running, just because I promised I could flip the tables. So Kathy, we'll start with you.
Have you heard anybody that's going to be running against you?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
Peggy Hubbard. She just lost to Mark Curran. And
yes.
Yes,
I've met her several times.
Yeah, she's decided for whatever reason to run again. I will beat her. I will beat Tammy Duckworth, and watch me when I do. It's funny because Peggy Hubbard and I actually have a lot in common. We really do. We have a lot of common views. We honestly do. I've watched her lives, and I agree with about 80% of what she's saying. But my problem with the way she presents herself is her demeanor. She does a lot of personal attacking, and I'm not about that. You know, we're not in high school. We're not little kids. We're here to make a difference, and we're here to make changes. And that's why we're here, and we need to keep that focus. And that's the one thing that I think that I have over her is my demeanor is completely different. Number one, I'm not a politician. I'm not a career politician. I'm a human being that wants to make an honest difference, and I have to sleep at night. And that means that I have to make decisions that allow me to sleep at night. And I have 3 beautiful daughters and a very handsome son that will kick my ever living butt from Washington back to Illinois if I don't. So, I'm held accountable, and I hold myself accountable. But yeah, I do. Peggy Hubbard's going to run, and I'm sure others are going to come up because I'm still early. But and transparency is the key. It really is. And if you can't be transparent, you can't be honest, you can't sit down and have a real conversation, then you have absolutely nothing.
Right.
And,
I agree. I agree.
And Chris Roper said it best. The best thing that a human being can have is ears. I know he said it differently, but that's what he meant. And if you can't listen and effectively act on that listening skill, then you're not going to get anywhere. So, Ashley, you're up. Go ahead. Fire away.
I'm going to give you an easy one. When you get into office, we're going to say when you get into office, will you uphold the constitutional freedom of the citizens in your state?
Absolutely. 110%.
To me, that's the most important question. If you're gonna work for us, we're gonna make sure you get where you need to be so you can do so. We appreciate you.
Absolutely. And that's my job, is to work for the people that vote for me. Without my voters, I don't have a seat. So you have to, I don't know what that was. You have to really focus on, I thought that was me for a second. I was like, what did I do?
Sorry, there was mine.
No, you're fine. You have to listen, and you have to uphold your voters' opinions and their heart and where they stand and how they feel. And which means you have to have real conversations with them. And they're not always easy conversations, and you're not always going to get along. But if you find common ground, and you have transparency, then that's what matters.
I agree.
Well, I appreciate you ladies for coming on my show. Again, every Monday night at 7:30 is Citizen Watch. We'll have some new guests next Monday, maybe 1 or 2. Now, after the Thanksgiving holiday, I'm going to announce this right now. We are going to have a roundtable discussion, and I'm going to come back and invite everybody that's been on the show so far, including you ladies. So that's going to be a fun conversation. Yeah. Several libertarians, Donnie, he's great. Chad Grimm, Chris Roper, hopefully, I'm going to try to arrange it to where everybody can be on at once so we can have a huge roundtable conversation, and I'm going to call it a special. So I'm not done, ladies. I'm really not. I got an end game to what I'm doing. I see the light, and I'm running full speed ahead. So again, thank you for coming on Citizen Watch. Everybody have a blessed day, and everybody have a great Thanksgiving and Christmas. And Ashley, good luck to your Thanksgiving parade. I'm very sorry I got to miss it. I will live stream.
I think Miss Kathy's going to be there, right?
I'll be there. I don't have the Santa, but I've got somebody that has a Santa suit. So you got to find somebody to wear it.
All right. I got you.
Nice.
A message.
Well, everybody, head to Chicago for Thanksgiving if you have a little bit of time, and help Miss Ashley out. And everybody support Kathy in her run for office in 2022. I'll be glad to speak at any of your events if you'd like me to, Kathy. I got to hit 102 counties plus. So, we can work together. We can hold those hands around that Christmas tree and hold each other up.
That's right.
And support each other. So God bless USA.
Yes. Thank you so much. Yeah. We got to organize, get strong together.
Absolutely. We got to be a team, man. It takes a village to raise a child, and it takes a village to raise a state.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. God bless
you so much.
Have a good night.
All right. You ladies have a wonderful night. Good night.
You too. Bye-bye.